The date is October 21st, 1978. The cool breeze of spring seeps over Cape Otway in southern Australia. This site has a small runway for takeoffs and landings, primarily used by small aircraft such as light aircraft. It is specifically utilized as a training ground for aspiring pilots seeking to obtain their flight licenses. In this site, you can rent a light aircraft, find flight instructors, and access a radar station. There is constant communication with Civil Flight Control, which at the time was referred to as Flight Services, the original flight control of Melbourne. Civil Flight Control in Australia was historically referred as Flight Service in certain contexts. Specifically, Flight Service Units (FSUs) were part of Australia's air traffic management system. Distinct from air traffic control, these units provided en route advisory services, flight information, and search and rescue coordination, but did not manage aircraft separation like ATC. The Melbourne Flight Service Centre was one of the key regional hubs that provided these services. Over time, these systems have evolved, and many responsibilities once handled by flight services have been integrated into modern air traffic control and even automated. The term flight service is less commonly used now in Australia. From the Cape Otway airstrip, pilots with little experience often take off and fly to a place known as King Island. King Island, just 48 miles across the Bass Strait, was the ideal destination for building pilots. A short journey over sparkling waters and picturesque landscapes made it both practical and pleasing, a perfect practice place. It's not easy to get lost here. Plus, it's also a heavily traveled route for those navigating between Tasmania and Australia. It was a route so simple, so familiar, that it seemed impossible for anything to go wrong. And yet, this ordinary journey would soon turn into one of aviation's greatest mysteries.
Among the many young pilots prepared to conquer the skies in this busy airstrip was Frederick Valentich. Frederick Valentich, a 20-year-old aspiring pilot, was just like any other young aviator, eager to hone his skills on a routine training plan. At 150 hours of flight, the young pilot was determined, even though his skills weren't exactly up to par. Despite his training, he had been rejected twice by the Royal Australian Air Force due to inadequate academic qualifications, and had a history of failing some of the components of his test. His instructors trusted him enough for short flights, but the leap to commercial aviation was still far away. As the clock struck 6 p.m., the sky in Cape Badway began to darken. Valentich climbed into the cockpit of a small plane, filed his flight plan, and prepared to embark in what should have been an ordinary night journey.
This evening, Frederick Valentich is flying a Cessna 182L. It's a very compact aircraft. It has four very tight seats, a single engine, and simple doors. In general, it's a small plane, a light aircraft. The Cessna, much like its predecessors, has been nicknamed the workhorse because of its uses and capabilities. This plane isn't just reliable, it's approachable. Its simple layout and ease of handling have made it one of the favorite for flight schools worldwide.
For you and me, all these styles, gauges, small buttons might look confusing, but for someone who is not only training to become a pilot but has some hours of practice, it's just straightforward.
Everything seemed fine. The plane was registered as DSJ. In aviation, letters like D, S, and J are often communicated as Delta Sierra Juliet to avoid confusion over radio static. The phonetic system ensures clarity and disguise. With his route planned and everything seemingly in order, Valentich's journey appeared uneventful. But as he neared the halfway mark to King Island, a chilling series of events began to unfold. events that will remain unexplained to this day. As the sun began to dip down below the horizon, Valentich prepared for takeoff. The familiar hum of the single-engine Cessna filled the air as it rolled down the Otway airstrip, lifting gracefully into the calm evening sky. A smooth takeoff. Valentich begins to gain altitude as he reaches 4,500 feet. The skies were clear, the air was calm, and everything seemed routine. But just as the sun dipped below the horizon, the peaceful evening began to take an unsettling turn. After taking off from Cape Otway, Valentich reports passing the lighthouse near the cape, before setting his course towards King Island. The Cessna 182L, traveling at a steady speed of around 170 miles per hour, climbs to 4,500 feet, an altitude free from larger aircraft or turbulence. But then, at approximately 7:06 p.m. local time, a communication is received by Melbourne Flight Service that would forever mark this flight as some of aviation's most unsettling mysteries.
The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity?
No known aircraft in the vicinity.
Seems to be playing some sort of game. He's flying over me.
Can you describe the aircraft?
As it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify it. It has such speed. It's before me right now, Melbourne.
How large would the object be?
Seems like it's stationary. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside. That strange aircraft's hovering on top of me again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
At this point, Valentich appears to believe that he is observing a large aircraft with bright landing lights. The situation grows more unsettling when he reports that the aircraft had just passed over him less than 1,000 feet above. Okay. A small aircraft encountering a larger one in such close proximity is extremely dangerous. The wake turbulence created by larger planes can destabilize smaller aircraft. For example, in 2014 near Santa Monica, California, a Cessna 172 crashed after it encountered wake turbulence from a Gulfstream jet descending to land. The Cessna, unable to recover from the sudden instability, tragically went down. Now, imagine what might happen if a large unidentified aircraft passed just 300 meters above Valentich's light plane at high speed. The danger would be immeasurable. At 7:12 p.m., Valentich reports engine trouble. Suddenly, a metallic scraping sound is heard on the transmission. For 17 seconds, the noise continues, followed by silence. Melbourne Flight Service tries repeatedly to re-establish contact with Valentich, but receives no further response. At 7:13 p.m., the radar bleep representing Delta Sierra Juliet disappears. Valentich, his plane, and the strange object are never seen again. When Frederick Valentich and his Cessna disappeared over the Bass Strait, an official investigation was launched by the Australian Department of Transport. While the exact details of the investigation remain sparse, a summary report included the transcript of Valentich's final communication and a detailed analysis of the search efforts. Emergency alerts were issued shortly after Valentich's final transmission. Civilian boats, Coast Guard vessels, and several aircraft were mobilized in search of the area, covering over 1,000 square miles. Despite extensive efforts, no wreckage of the Cessna 182L was ever found. The Bass Strait is notorious for its strong currents and unpredictable tides, which might have swept the debris out of the sea. While the area near Cape Otway is relatively shallow, around 50 to 70 meters deep, the search proved challenging due to the rough conditions. Even so, investigators noted that the parts of the plane such as the wings or fuel tanks might have floated temporarily. The complete lack of debris remains a mystery to this day. Adding to the intrigue, witnesses near Cape Outway reported seeing unusual lights in the sky around the time of Valentich's disappearance. Some described erratic movements, while others simply recalled hearing a sound of an aircraft engine. However, none of them reported seeing the plane crash. Theory number 1. Disorientation and pilot error. The most grounded explanation is that Valentich, a relatively inexperienced pilot, became disoriented during his flight. Valentich might have entered a graveyard spiral, a situation where the pilot loses spatial awareness, causing the plane to descend rapidly in a tightening turn until it crashes. In 2013, a team composed of an astronomer, a retired U.S. pilot, and author John Nichol reviewed the date and proposed that Valentich fell victim to an optical illusion called tilted horizon. The illusion tricks pilots into thinking they are inverted, and when flying in open sea, especially during sunset or night, it can become disoriented. It is believed that at some point Valentich was flying upside down, but since the plane has a detachable floor and a cup holder, he would notice. Theory number 2. Engine failure. Valentich reports of engine trouble suggest mechanical failure could have played a role. However, investigators found no evidence that the Cessna 182L had a history of mechanical issues. If the engine did fail, it still doesn't explain the strange lights Valentich described or the metallic sounds heard in his final transmission. About the lights, it is argued that Valentich might have misidentified Venus, which was visible in the sky that evening. However, supporters of the UFO theory dismiss this, noting the dynamic movements and proximity Valentich reported. Theory number 3. UFO encounter. The most debated theory is that Valentich encountered an unidentified flying object. His vivid descriptions, a large, shiny object with green lights hovering and moving at high speed, have been interpreted as evidence of extraterrestrial encounter. Ufologists point to the metallic sound at the end of his transmission as further proof of something otherworldly. To this day, the disappearance of Frederick Valentich remains one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Was it a tragic accident caused by inexperience, or did something extraordinary occur over the Bass Strait that night? The answer, like Valentich himself, is lost to history.